we will jump right into the association. And we had a boring day of playing basketball, and then we had a much more exciting day of playing basketball. So I'm going to go in chronological order and start with the absolute snooze fest that was the Charlotte Hornets and the Indiana Pacers. Indiana, man, you could just see the complete utter difference between a team that had never played any sort of playoff basketball and a team that had been in the playoffs. Even if they hadn't experienced so much playoff success, they'd been in it for now a couple of years in a row. And the Pacers just brought a ton of energy and intensity and physicality, even not at 100%. Both teams had guys missing. Obviously, LeVert out and Turner out for the Pacers, and the Hornets missing Gordon Hayward. But the Pacers just completely dominated. O'Shea Brissett, a guy the Raptors cut midway through the season, a Canadian, was awesome and has been great for them for the late run of the season with the injuries they've had. And Sabonis puts up a huge rebounding total and was all over this game. And just the Pacers really took it to the Hornets. And playoff experience really showed there. And a big blowout when Doug McDermott he caught fire right off the beginning, was just hitting threes everywhere. And the Hornets looked sort of lost. And that's the first lumps that this group will take. Obviously, they'll be back, especially with LaMelo Ball and Miles Bridges as their two younger core pieces, and then PJ Washington as well, and Jaden McDaniels. So the Hornets will be back, but yeah, they really got punched in the mouth, and kind of a sour note to end a fun season that they had. We move on to the night game. The Celtics and the Wizards, another one that tried to raise the excitement level, but just it really was tough to get into this game. And Jason Tatum, without Jaylen Brown, drops 50 points, which seemed to not get enough attention. It is not that common where you get 50 points in a quote unquote playoff game, if that's what we're calling these. And he did it. Obviously, you can see that the Wizards, they've had such a great late stretch, and now they're finally into this great spot. And Bradley Beal's dealing with a hamstring injury, and Russell Westbrook, I think, has been beat up a bit over the last couple of weeks, and he just didn't have his best game. And the Celtics are in to the playoffs, and it will be the Wizards and the Indiana Pacers playing for the 8th seed, and there is going to be absolutely zero defense played in that game. So looking forward to the absolute score fest, which will be going on tonight. All right. We have our second day of play in action, kicking off with the Memphis Grizzlies and the San Antonio Spurs. And the Grizzlies, it was a tight game in the end, but it was a wide gap in the beginning of this game, and then it got tightened up as we got down the final stretch. I think two smaller market teams, so the interest wasn't there the same, especially with the game that was about to come afterwards. But hey, lots of CanCon for us, and not just Canadian players, but guys who had played for the Raptors involved in this game. Dillon Brooks was really, really fantastic, playing hard-nosed defense on DeMar, who had a really tough night. Where have we seen that before? DeMar struggling in playoff games, 5 of 21 from the field. And Dillon Brooks on the other side puts in 24 of his own, really great contribution. And then Jonas Valanciunas really dominating, such an old school guy who's now become really underrated in today's NBA, but he puts up 23 and 23 and was just dominant all over the place, tipping out balls, getting rebounds, establishing a presence inside. Really old school, but it helps with this Memphis team that they have a guy they can give the ball to, and he can go get them a bucket in this new age where there aren't a lot of big centers that can bang with him. So then Memphis awaits the loser of the Los Angeles Lakers and the Golden State Warriors. And this game met all of the hype that it was built up to be. Unbelievable. This will probably be the most watched game of the season, unless somehow these two teams once again meet in the playoffs later, which is not going to happen. But the two biggest stars on the planet, LeBron James and Steph Curry, the Lakers and the Warriors. And the Warriors came out and took it to the Lakers right from the beginning. Andrew Wiggins had a really, really solid game and some early, great defensive possessions on LeBron. Obviously, AD, Schroeder, and LeBron all struggled from the field to start. I think they were 2 of 20 from the field or something in the first 2 quarters. And yeah, just it felt like even with Steph Curry being like harassed and followed by two players almost every possession, the Warriors were making some shots when it was given to the hands of other players. And on the defensive side, like you forget Draymond Green, man, he stepped it up in this big game and he is seemingly everywhere on the defensive end. And he is fantastic. He is an absolute force. And it was really a defensive slugfest where the Lakers just looked a little bit more rusty. And then the second half, they turned it on and cut it close. And Curry made some ridiculous shots down the stretch, was still being bothered all the time by Caruso, by KCP. And it came down right to the end. And LeBron hits this crazy buzzer-beating 30-footer with about a minute left to go. The Warriors miss a shot in the corner where Jordan Poole was literally surrounded by like 6 Lakers bench players all yelling at him, who are all standing up. That's got to be an impossible shot to hit when you've got all those guys leaning over you as you're trying to take an open corner three. And then Lakers don't get a bucket, and the Warriors, they were hoping to get another magical transition three from Steph, which we've seen time and time again. He gets doubled, and it takes them too long to call a timeout and reset things. And by then, they really only had 2 seconds left, and the Lakers chomped down. And yeah, a really, really big win for the Lakers. I think the Warriors really surprised a lot of people with the intensity that they came out with, but this was a really great game and awesome defense by both sides. I think if Steph can have a couple of his inferno games, first they have to get through Memphis in this final playing game. I think they could actually be a real problem for the Jazz, just with the way that this team plays defense. And they were a top 10 team in defense this year. I think even they were top 5. I think they were 5th in defensive rating this year. So a deceptive part of this team. And they got a lot of guys who are willing to get in the trenches and fight for the ball and hustle. And I don't think like Phoenix and Utah, these are probably 2 of the worst matchups you could draw if you're going into a first round series, the Lakers and the Warriors. So it just means it's going to be awesome playoff basketball. Max, I'm not sure if you have any thoughts about this last game.
Yeah, I did catch the last 10 minutes of it. And yeah, if you're Adam Silver, you literally couldn't ask for anything better than LeBron hitting a clutch buzzer beater 3 to win the game in a neck and neck slugfest. Maybe a little more money on the Warriors going into the first round if they're playing in a game with even reffing. I felt really bad for them from what I watched. I saw Wiggins get called on a charging foul with a screen that looked like it was pretty moving. And then 3-4 minutes later, Draymond gets called for the same screen as a foul that they called for the Lakers against the Warriors. And you mentioned the timeout, and I thought Steve Kerr was screaming for a lot longer than if they had had 2 seconds on the clock, they might have had a better shot at drawing something up. So I was talking with my friend about this today, and at some point, I get it. You just have to shut off that part of your brain and shut up and watch them play, because you're only hurting your own enjoyment. And I really did. The type of basketball I hate the most is 2 minutes left in the game and they're just trading layup drives to see who can get fouls called. So I'm grateful it wasn't that kind of game, but as entertaining and tense as it was, I can't shut up that little part of my brain that's I can easily swing some of the foul calls for 6 easy points to the Warriors, and that game doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think those are the ones that stand out because in the end, the Warriors are the losing team. I think it was actually called fairly consistently throughout the game. Obviously, with 2 guys like LeBron and Anthony Davis, you're just always going to have that free throw discrepancy, and that's just kind of built into the game, and it seems like everyone kind of accepts that. But we'll get to it. I think you can make the same argument for hockey right now. The refs have had their hands in a lot of these games as well. So it's always going to be something that's prevalent in all of these sports. And obviously officiating is something you just got to deal with. And hopefully nothing too egregious happens. And that's why we have replay. But yeah, there's going to be a couple more moments down the stretch in the NBA and in the NHL where reffing is going to make a big swing.